Every clergyman has had this experience of getting a call, it's usually in the middle of the night, from a family, from a social worker in a hospital, from a friend of a friend of a friend, that a family's in crisis in a hospital. You get up, you kiss your wife goodbye, your spouse goodbye, you get dressed, you drive to the hospital, and what you discover is grandma, mom, dad, Uncle Fred, lying in an ICU room, attached to wires and tubes and a variety of medical interventions, and a family gathered around the bed. And the family is alternatively grieving and angry at each other, grieving and arguing. They're grieving because the doctors have told them there's nothing else they can do to preserve life. And they're angry at each other because they're being asked to make a decision that no loved one has ever been prepared to make, which is, when is it time to die? And there's always an argument. One sibling says, it's time to let her go. She's been fighting too long. This is not how mom would want to live. One sibling says, no, we have to keep fighting, even if there's the slightest chance of survival, even if there's the slightest chance of recovery. And it's often, and without prejudice, often it's the sibling who's from out of town who wants to keep fighting, and the one who's been there night after night after night with that mother, that father, that uncle, that friend who's been fighting for that person's life, who knows how long the fight has been going on. And then you have the pressure of the doctors, the hospital administrator, the insurance company, who are telling you that you've been there long enough, there's nothing else they can do. They need the bed for other patients who actually have a chance of recovery. And the clergyman is brought into a family, and usually I don't know this family. I've never met them. They don't know me. I'm some stranger. And I'm supposed to referee this argument. And what happens is that whether the person is going to die now or tomorrow, that family has exploded. And I'm trying to pick up a few pieces here to make sure that there's some love left, some forgiveness, some wholeness. Whatever decision is going to be made is going to be attended with a huge load of guilt. If we let mom go, there's the burden of, you killed mom. And if we keep her on the feeding tube and put in the ventilator tube and continue the ordeal of preserving the life of the body, then there's the sense of, I left mom suffer. It's an impossible situation. What happens when there's a battle over that hospital bed? When one sibling says, you're trying to kill mom, and the other sibling saying, no, I'm trying to give her peace. It's not unusual, at least it's not unusual in my experience, for those two people to never speak to each other again. I've had cases where they wouldn't attend the funeral. I actually had to do 2 funeral services because you killed mom is such a bitter accusation. And I'm just trying to give mom peace, and you're trying to take it away from her, is a bitter accusation. Families explode. The centrifugal force of that moment is so powerful. Families explode. Having the conversation, recording it in some fashion, remembering it, holding it dear, allows these two siblings to say, we miss her. We love her. We would have wanted her to have more time with our children and their children, but this is the right thing to do. And for a sibling to turn to a sibling and say, I forgive you. Yeah, I didn't want to let mom go, but you made the right decision. I forgive you. That's holiness. That's revelation. That's a moment of sanctity for a clergyman, for a rabbi, and that's a moment of love and oneness. And now the family can grieve together, and they can remember her together, and they can cherish the memories of her life and the wisdom of her life, or his life. That they can do now. That's what the conversation allows us to do. So I stood before my congregation on the holiest day of the year, the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. I stood in front of 2,500 people, and I said, I want you to have the hardest conversation you ever had with your family. I want you to tell them when it's time to let you go. I want you to tell them what life means to you. What is the essence of life? What are the things that you want to be able to do that's going to tell your family that they should fight for your life? But when enough is enough, when enough treatment, enough interventions, enough technology is enough, and you'd be at peace to say goodbye, my life has been good and it's time for me to depart. And if you have that conversation, you save your family that horrible night in the hospital. You save your family all of the guilt, all of the rage, all of the anger, all the explosion. And I begged them to do this. And what I was really gratified is that after I gave the talk, people had the conversation. Families called me in the days afterwards and said it was hard to do. There were a lot of tears. But in the context of the holiday, which is a very serious holiday, and because their rabbi had told them they needed to do it, There was an opening. There was an opening, and families had these conversations. And in the end, I know that families were saved a great deal of anguish.